Today, I am joined by Verna Haywood. Verna is an empowerment coach. As a domestic abuse survivor, she learned to take back her power. Verna is the host of the Unstoppable Life podcast, where you can't keep a strong woman down. Welcome, Verna. I am delighted to have you here today. Could you share with our listeners a little bit more about your personal journey?
Oh, thank you so much, Kat, for having me. I appreciate it very much. My personal journey. Oh my goodness. I don't know where to start, but I guess nothing like starting from the very beginning, as the song would say.
Okay.
Well, I was born in Grenada. The original spice girl, as you would say, because our island produces spice. Well, what happened to me when I was much younger is that I was molested and sexually abused into my teenage years and into my adulthood. And then later in life, I got married. When you think you're over all the abuse and you get married, you're thinking your life is now about fulfillment and enjoyment. And what I didn't realize, I was stepping right back into an abusive relationship. Now you can see the signs where you're thinking, no, is not there. You just making things up, or the talk will come around that no, that's not what it is. And when somebody is a smooth talker, they can talk you around. And although I can see all of it, I guess I wasn't desperate to get married, but I think what it is because I was in church, not as I still am, but I was a worship leader and I was in hospitality. And I felt, okay, if you're doing all this, then getting married and settle down, and then everybody else was getting married and everybody telling you your clock running down to have babies and everything else. And you're thinking, okay, you just give in. And once we got married, but before we got married, I remember him, before we got married, I remember him hitting me on the night of the wedding. And but he had talks before. And I knew at that point, the night of the wedding, I shouldn't be getting married the next day. But my auntie was like, Verna, I'm only here for a short time, because my mom and my aunt are identical twins. And have never met her. My mom disappeared. It will be 38 years this year since I last saw my mom.
Oh, wow.
And she came to represent my mom, at the wedding. And because I've never met her before, all I've heard about her. I have this aunt in England and everything like that. And she came. So I just wanted to get to know her. I just want to soak up every moment with her. And I think he was getting jealous that I had her in my life, because before it meant that I didn't have any of my family around. So I was like, a lonesome, so he can take advantage of that. But now I was getting closer to my relatives and my close family. That became like a threat to him. So it means that he didn't have that power over you anymore. Anyway, I didn't go to the hairdresser. I didn't go to get my makeup done. Nothing that you would normally do on such an occasion, which is the happiest moment of your life. I didn't do that. But I got married. Yeah, I just got dressed and went into the church. And then when he saw me came in and I stood by him, he was like, what's that? Why are you like this? Not that anybody could hear him asking me those questions. And I just said, what did you expect? After what you did, what did you expect? Did you expect me to do anything? And I think everybody was shocked by my appearance, to the extent that the minister asked me, are you getting married?
What did you say?
And I said, yeah, not with with a conviction. Yes, with a conviction. It was just, yeah. And then so he carried on. He asked me about 3 times and I still insisted, yes. I looked across to my right, to my left, and there was my auntie. And I said, yes. Because for her, it was just jealousy, and she was going back and she didn't want to stop my life from going forward. And then my uncle on my right, who was going to be the one giving me away, when they asked him, who do you give this woman to? And he said, I don't know.
Wow.
You don't know? He said, no, I don't know. What I did not realize is that my auntie and him had a conversation. She told him what had happened, and he decided there and then that he wasn't going to give me away. I wasn't going to get married, but I wasn't aware of it. So after the third time, I just elbowed him and said, "Oh, you mean you don't know?" He said, "Well, I don't know." And then he eventually said, his name, and we got married. And I mean, from the honeymoon night, it started.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then I had a friend who was getting married, and I thought, don't buy a wedding dress, because my wedding dress is there. It's quite long, so I'm sure it could fit you. She was much taller. I'm sure it could fit you. There's no need for you to go buy one. So I went to help her prepare and everything for a wedding. And as I walk out the gate, he ran after me in a t-shirt he was wearing, and accosted me in the road in front of everybody and took the keys from me, bearing in mind that when he met me, I had everything. The only thing I didn't buy was the house, but I had a 2-bedroom, fully furnished home. And he walked into that without any care in the world, didn't have to bring anything. And here was a man telling me, don't bother to come back in the house. You can't come back in, taking my keys from me.
That's really horrible. I mean, that must have been so painful for you to go through. And it sounds like from the story that you're sharing, like you got married reluctantly, so because like you got married from a very unempowered place and pleasing everybody but yourself at that time in your life, right?
Yeah.
So, and like your early life history and that experience, and even up to the wedding for your friend, I mean, it sounds very, very stressful and very painful.
It was very stressful and very painful. And then it proceeded to get even worse, because at that point, knowing that you become powerless now, and the next stage was, let's go to the bank. And we went to the bank, and I had to open a joint account with his name on it. And we got to the bank, and his cousin was the one we met. And she said to me, she asked what we were there for, and we told her. And she said to me, "Verna, don't do it. Don't open a joint account with him. He's my cousin, but don't do it." And he looked at her and he said, "Why are you saying that?" She said, "Verna, I know him. Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it."
What did you do?
Well, I just thought, at the end of the day, I'm in the house living with him. You're not there. So I'm just going to do it. And I did. And what used to happen was whenever money go into the account, he used to take it all. So then I had to walk to work, or whatever, however I got there. You remember, he was in the army, so he was a soldier. So the vice and the grip he can put you in is nothing that I I should be able to come out of. But one day when he did it, I thought definitely my hand would have been broken. But by the grace of God, I managed to come out of that vice. And there were a couple of other times that he hit me, and I decided I was going to leave home. I left home and went to stay with some friends. And after a week or two, one of the pastors came to their home and said, I need to go back to my husband. And then so I said, and then they said he came and he spoke with them and they counseled him. I said, but who came to me? Nobody came to me, but you are asking me to go back. And nobody inquired of me what happened. This is not right.
How did you feel? Like, how did that make you feel? Did you feel alone? Did you feel like, what did it feel in your heart? Or
I felt alone. I felt unwanted. I felt that I didn't matter. Right. I didn't matter. He mattered more. His feelings mattered more than mine. And at that moment, I decided I was never going to be a worship leader again. Because if I'm a worship leader and I'm leading people into the presence of God, and I could be treated like that, then what's the point? I'm not going to be doing that. And my home is not in order. And I am leading people into praise and worship. I'm not going to be doing that. Because I remember praise and worship was getting to a level where it was really very strong, because it's all about the worshiping. It's about bringing people into the presence of God and getting the place purified and sanctified, ready for the minister to preach, so that the people can really receive. They can be on the receiving end and receive the word without any hesitation. And that's how I saw myself. I saw myself as, when I had to do praise and worship, it was a time, it's my week. It was a week of getting into God's presence and hearing what it is the Holy Spirit wanted me to do. And if it is that when we did praise and worship practice on a Saturday night, if Sunday morning the Holy Spirit wanted to go in a different direction, I would follow that, because it's not about me. It was about God. It was about his people. And I took that very, very seriously. And so I decided I was going to step away. Nobody asked me to. I decided on my own merit, on how I felt, that if you could treat me like this, then there is no point in me being a worship leader. And then from that point on, I remember when he hit me with a baton, I remember I was ironing and he tried to stick the iron from me. And I just heard one voice, one thing: if you take the iron, he's going to burn you. So it was ironing. And I just took the iron and just slammed it on the ground, and it broke into pieces. And that angered him, because he couldn't get to do what he wanted to do. So then he held me and twisted me around and hit me and stuff like that. And I just decided, listen, I didn't go through all of this when I was younger. I wasn't go through all this molestation and sexual abuse now to be an adult, married woman and be domestically abused. And so I started praying for a way out. And I remember a few verses where God said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I have carved you in the palm of my hands. Your cares are forever before me. I will make a way where there seems to be no way. And I sat praying these prayers and saying them, walking to work and praying them. And it's like, I'm working in a mental institution, but I will not be a patient here. I will not go mentally insane. And I will not die, because then he started talking about bringing a gun at home. And there's only one thing you can bring a gun at home to do. Nothing else. Why would you bring a gun at home? So the moment I heard that, I decided, okay, first thing I did was get my passport out of the house. I gave it to a friend, a very close friend, because I knew if I left home, he was going to search me. And he did. But he wouldn't search her. It was a Sunday she came home. And I knew he wouldn't do anything while she was there. So I gave her my passport, got my passport out of the house. And then I started making plans. And I have an aunt in the US, in New York, and I thought maybe I should go to my aunt. But then I thought New York is too close, because he had family in New York as well. So I'll head to England, and I had family in England, and England was a safe distance away. I needed distance, because when you have distance between you and an abuser, you could feel safer. But even then, I didn't feel safe, because every time the phone rang, he knew where I was, because I let him know where I was. Because at the time I didn't think of divorce. I just thought going away would give him some clarity and bring some senses. But he didn't get either. And so when the phone rang, I used to panic and start, trembling. And then my friends was like, why are you trembling? Every time the phone rang and we say, he called, you just change. And eventually I told them what happened. And eventually the phone call stopped. When he asked me to come back, and I said, what am I coming back for? And then he said, well, I got discharged from the army. I said, well, if you got discharged, then you have to start dating me from afar. And then I told one of his friends who were here in England, and she said, don't do it. Don't do it. And then another friend of mine's back in Trinidad, when I was chatting with him, he said, why are you coming back? What for? What is here for you? Because it's not going to change. He hasn't changed, and nothing is going to change. And therefore, I just started to move on with my life. So you might think that you have to stay. Sometimes it's shame make a woman want to stay in the same situation. It might be you don't want to let anybody know that this is happening to you. It might be that you're thinking, how can I do it? Financially, I can't make it because I don't have what it takes. There's lots of reasons why you want to stay. And my thing would be, don't. Your life is at stake. You only have one life.
What was that moment, Verna, that cracked open your heart and shifted everything, that really forced this change of perception? You didn't want to you worked in a mental institution, you didn't want to be a patient, you lived with someone who was so cruel to you, but part of you felt like you should be there. What was that moment that made you shift and not go back?
Yeah, the moment that made the shift, I think, is when I go back to the night when he pushed me in front of friends the day before the wedding. And then he was in hospital. He had to have a back surgery and he was in private hospital. And they were short of nurses and I had to help him. I had to sleep in the hospital. So I had to bathe him, wash him, and look after him and everything else. And eventually when he got home, we were on the bed and I leaned over to grab something on the side table. And as I leaned over, he picked up a baton and he hit me with it. Mm. And I was like shocked because his niece and his nephew was there. And they called out, "Uncle," call him by his name. What has she done? Thank goodness they were there. And, "Oh, you didn't see she tried to kill me?" And then all I did was leaned over. You were in the hospital and I didn't kill you then. Why would I kill you now? You know? Right. And then this is a man who didn't want to go back to work because he wanted to be at home. He would complain about his back. He can't go back and stuff like that. And then he would walk up 7 flights of stairs at a friend's house who lived in an apartment. How could you do that if you have a bad back? How could you do that? And he would track me wherever I go, whatever I do. So I couldn't stop and talk to anyone. I had to rush home. I was like a little kid. As you finish work, head home. Don't go anywhere. Don't talk to anybody. Don't do anything. I can't live like that.
Right.
I can't live like that. I had to get away. I had to get away.
I really admire you for wanting to get away, and not just wanting to, but doing it. You know, it may have taken you some time, and, you know, you were in a very controlling, abusive relationship. And when you left, it sounds like some of that strength there was just an inner strength because you didn't want to live like that. And also, you know, your prayer and leaning into your faith really helped catapult that to you. If there are other women out there like yourself struggling being in an abusive relationship, how can they find their own strength to make the shift to leave if they're feeling that they need to leave or want to leave, like it's just so unhealthy? How can they find their strength?
Oh, they have to look deep within themselves. Mm-hmm. You have to look, because you have to want to as well. You have to want to, and you have to look for help, because I didn't just leave. I had help. I had people, because I didn't have the money for the ticket. Mm-hmm. I knew I had family here in the UK, so I had to have help to come over. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, you might be thinking, well, maybe I'll leave and then I'll have to go back. I started from scratch. I put myself back through college and got my certification in holistic therapies, full aesthetics, beauty therapist. Mm-hmm. And then I studied travel and tourism. So because I love traveling, I love meeting people. Nice. Travel and tourism. And then I got a job on cruise liners as a therapist, assistant manager. And I did that for 4 contracts. Wow. And then I didn't decide I wanted to carry on, but I became thyrotoxicosis, which means my body had too much toxins in it. I could have died from toxins, too much of poison. It was poisoning me. And so the doctor said, Verna, you need to go home. You need to go and get looked after, because they did everything, found that I had a hole in my heart and all of that. And then when I called home, they said, oh, don't have any operation in the States, come home. And I got home, the doctor gave me all my certification and everything like that, medical. Then I took it to the GP over here and he said everything was fine, but I was losing weight and no one knew. I couldn't hold anything with my right hand. It will just go limp. I was getting injection in my shoulders for it.
I think that was from really, is it just a physical toxicity, or was it all the emotional stuff that you'd kept down?
It was, I guess, a mixture of both, because I was getting the toxicity from the products I was using, because if you think about it, you're on cruise liners for 6 months, working straight, you only get a day and a half off, and you're in an enclosed room, so your body absorbing all the toxins, because people fail to, they forget that some aromatherapy oils are toxic, and if you're taking too much of that and you're not drinking enough for anybody out, you're taking all of that by inhalation and going through your pores and everything else, so you're taking in too much, and that was happening, and I had no idea, because I will just finish do a seaweed wrap, and I will step out of the room and I'll be bursting with perspiration, and my heart will be going like this, palpitation. And so it was a case that I really had to look into it. And by the time I came off on board ships, they couldn't find exactly what was happening. So they was giving me the cortisone injection. They put me on viroxin, and then I got an allergic reaction. And then they said I had a hole in my heart and everything. So it was just, I needed to come home. And it's a good thing I did, because the next day after going to the GP, when I got up and I looked in the mirror to brush my teeth, my throat was swollen and I just screamed, because my thyroid, you have a butterfly, my thyroid was swollen. And so I had to be taken back to the GP. And then the next thing you knew, I ended up in hospital where they were thinking of taking my thyroid out. And they had to put me on propyltyrosine and thyroxine to kind of reduce that. And then,
so did you have surgery to remove it, or did you heal it holistically?
Yeah, holistically. Nice. So what I do is I want to make sure that I eat right. I eat lots of fresh vegetables and fruits. And also I'm supposed to have my blood test done every 6 months, and just make sure. So, and then I took the tablets, and then they took me off it completely. So I'm not in any tablets whatsoever, but it's just about maintaining good health and looking after oneself. So, God made everything for us to eat. All fruits, all herbs, everything is in the garden for us to eat. So when we are being sold all these toxicity foods, we need to be careful what we put in our system, because our body is a temple. So if there is any woman out there thinking, oh, I can't do that. Oh, yes, you can. You can. But you need to surround yourself with the right people. You need to know who you're speaking to and who you're telling any secrets to. Because people can laugh with you. My grandmother used to say, not every skin grain is a laugh. Not everybody is a genuine. You really need to decipher who is genuine and who is not. And just make your plans. And that's what I did, just made my plans. But in so doing, if you're thinking I can't make it, just remember what I just said. I started from scratch.
Right.
I started with nothing. And I took myself back to college, did my degree, did a spa degree, end up working in a spa, end up owning a spa. Don't own one now, but I did.
That's great.
I'm still moving forward. I'm still moving forward. Now I am.
You're unstoppable.
That's why it's called the unstoppable life.
I was going to ask you that, because you've rebuilt your life, like you said, from scratch, like everything, your emotional health, your physical health, your education, your business, your work. I mean, everything. You flipped it. You started over. I mean, you look and sound unstoppable. I know we've gotten to speak outside of this, interview. What, and you've created like a business around some of it to help other people become unstoppable. What are the 7 pillars of health for you that you've discovered or evolved into because of all this?
Yeah. The 7 pillars of health is your physical health, your emotional health, your social health, your spiritual health, your financial health. So you have to look at all of that, and your environment. So, your environment, and your environment doesn't mean just being outside, but who are you hanging around with? What's the environment like? Who are you hanging around with? What are they speaking? What are you inviting into your life? Because the more toxicity you invite is the more toxic you get. So when you're thinking about our body, we're thinking about our body, mind, soul, spirit, and body. And that's where I work from. And when we think about it, we have got to think about not only what we're reading, what we're consuming, what going into our system. So you have to think about words are like food. You're eating. You
Right.
eat it.
I agree.
It's not just about what you're cooking, but you're
Whatever you
eating
put inside, right?
whatever you put inside, because it's going on the inside and it's going to be doing something on the inside of you. So it's either going to be uplifting you, or you're going to feel tired and lethargic and down and dreading, and you don't want to do anything. You just want to stay in bed, get depressed. You're on antidepressants and all these different things. It's just doing your body any good. So you may as well hang around people who are going to put some positivity into you. My grandmother used to say, iron sharpened iron. So you hang around people who are sharpeners.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's great.
You don't want to hang around people who are dull, because then you start being like them. You start singing like them. You start thinking like them. And if you're in a position where you're thinking, oh, I can't do anything because my husband is going to, I can't watch this, I can't do this, you can listen. And that's why this podcast, you can put it on in your ears and you can listen. Nobody need to know what you're listening to.
Right.
You can take it with you wherever you go and you can listen. At that moment, I didn't have anybody that I could rely on, except for the people who helped me to come over here. But if you think from a young age, being molested and sexually abused, I started practicing using those words, because even when I got to age 19 and that person tried to do it to me again, I just stood up and I said, excuse me, if you touch me, if you only touch me, I'll kill you. Those are my words.
Yeah.
I had to stand my ground at that point.
To put a strong boundary up.
Yeah, I wasn't going to have that happen to me again, because now I was an adult and that wasn't going to happen to me. But it was so shocking that when I got married, I couldn't even say anything. You know what I mean? So I learned to develop those strategies from very young. How was I going to get out of it? And that's what I did. And that's what you can do. And that's why I've created the program that I've created now, so that I can help other women find their voice, other women get their strength. Because I have been doing it. I remember when I was going to do my degree in international spa management, there was a young girl, little girl, 3 years old, got raped by a family member. And I started to cry. And my cousin-in-law couldn't understand why it touched me so much. And she kept asking me, why is that bothering you so much? And eventually I told her my story. And she said, are you sure you should be doing that and not counseling? Because when people say they understand, they don't really understand. It's a book that they read, is they go through and they do this program. But actually, you have lived it. You understand it. You know what the pressure is, what they're going through. So when you say you understand, you truly understand. I say, yes, but I don't know if I can cope with somebody coming to tell me that somebody has done that to the child, because I might end up flying in their throat. So no, I'll just stay where I am, but I can still I can still coach people and mentor them and tell them. And so I pursued my degree in international spa management, and I will speak to clients when they come for therapeutic treatments. And then I decided I need to take it a step further.
So what step did you take to take it further?
Well, the step that I have taken now, if I go back in 2014, I knew I should start a show. I didn't know how. I did not know how. And you felt led to do something, but then I decided I didn't know what to do. So I just stayed with what I felt safe, which is the therapeutics. So I stayed doing that until what is happening now. I decided, okay, I will just get on Facebook, use Zoom, get on Facebook and start speaking to people. And that's what I did. And until we met outside of here, learning about podcasting and everything. So now having this program, it means I can be me. I can talk about the spiritual things that I have used. I can talk about whether it's Christianity, what's the difference, how that feels with everybody, because we are all different, but there is no reason why we all can come together. We might have different beliefs, but We all might be on the same track. We all looking for fulfillment. We all looking for that divinity that's that release. We all looking for that. We just want to be oneness with ourselves. So I created a program called Unstoppable Resilience.
Love the name.
3 powerful practices to take your power back. So I know you're going to ask me that question. What is it? 3 R's?
I did, because we were talking about behind the scenes before we went live about the 3 R's, and I wondered what they were. So what are the 3 R's for taking your power back?
The 3 R's are reflect, revitalize, and renew.
Love it.
Reflect. So you wanna reflect. You wanna look back. I know most people will say, "I don't want to go back," but if you don't go back and tidy up and get rid of some of the clutter, it's still going to be there. It's still going to hinder you from going forward. So you need to look back. Just go in, take what you need. The rest of garbage, just bye.
Let it go.
Say goodbye. Let it go. Don't hold it like a cloak. Don't do that. And just close the door behind you. Close the door. You don't even have to look back. You know where the knob is. Just put your hand there, hold that door, and close it. And then
clean it up and let it go.
You let it go.
So what's the next R?
And the next R is to revitalize.
Okay.
So now you have reflected. Now you have reflected. You look at what has happened, what has been broken, and how you're going to fix that. Now you need to revitalize. So revitalize, meaning you need to energize. You need to energize. You need a booster. You need to get a booster. All the clutter and everything come. You need to detoxify the brain, the mind, detoxify the body. And you become more energetic, more energized, and then you're able to move forward. And that will include a number of things, which I will go through with you, that you will need to practice. And I used to say practice make perfect. Now, my coach, singing choir coach, used to say, no, Verna, practice don't make perfect, practice make permanent. So if you practice the wrong thing, it becomes permanent. You practice the right thing, it becomes permanent. So practice make permanent.
Great.
And the third R is renew. Now, renew. So you reflect, you revitalize, now you renew. So each day is a new day. Every day is a new day. It's a new beginning. So it's a newness of life. You have newfound life. You have newfound enjoyment. So that movie you couldn't go to, now you know what? I am free. I have that freedom. I can do what I want. I can eat what I want. I can wear what I want. There is nobody to tell me you can't have this, you can't have that. You can't go here, you can't speak to this person. Oh my gosh, freedom. Freedom has arrived. I can do what I want.
Awesome.
And you can just, so you become refreshed, renewed. And this is what I use you renew for. Renew is restore, educate, nurture, empower women.
Oh, I like that. That's great. I love acronyms. I have a few of my own. We won't get into it, but I really like that for renew. And I can see, like, just looking at you saying that, your whole energy just lights up. So I really appreciate that. I like those 3 R's. I think it will resonate a lot with a lot of women. I wanted to ask you, because you coach and you coach too from some of your own experience, which I agree. When we can relate to someone with our personal experience, it really helps tap in. Not to say that there isn't a time and a place for other therapy and other support, but it really touches at that heart level when someone really, like you said, truly understands. And as a leader, helping other women go through their own challenges or renew themselves, how important do you think it is then to have compassion, like in business and in life as a leader?
Oh, it is important. It is important to have compassion. It is important to have love, because with love comes everything. I remember when I had my business and I had lots of staff, and I knew of other staff bullying others. Oh my gosh, I hate bullying. When you go through something yourself, you can't stand it. You can't see it happen to someone else. And so I find myself coaching, and when others will say something negative, I think, no, you don't understand. This person needs help. This person is going through something, and they need somebody that is understanding. And
Yeah.
when you work with them and you see them now, like one of the young ladies that I work with, she now has her own business. She started her own business and she's thriving. And that just brings me joy. And I just said, you need to cut off some people, family members, you need to cut them off. If you don't cut them off, you're not going to go anywhere. So you
Right.
just need to cut them off. As bad as it sounds, if you don't do it, you're not going to go anywhere. And then there was another young lady. We met at university, and I remember she went traveling, but she was not a qualified therapist like myself. When we went to university, we did higher advanced therapies. And because she did that, she didn't have a therapeutic certificate like I did. When she applied for certain position, nobody would give it to her because she didn't have that certification. So when I started my business, she asked me, said, come and work for me and get your knowledge that way, get it built up that way. Then nobody could say you haven't hold a position in that way. And she ended up starting her own business. And now
Good.
she has gone into, she studied chiropractic, and now she's a chiropractor.
That's
So,
awesome.
you have to, when you understand where people are from, you have to understand and you have to be compassionate towards them. You have to be compassionate, because when you are compassionate, it just opens the door. It opens the door, not just for them, but for you as well.
Oh, I like that. It does. It opens your own heart more. I
Yeah.
think that's really beautiful. Verna, I have a final question I really want to ask you. What do you want your legacy to be in this life?
Oh, my legacy. I am an advocate against violence against women.
Mhm.
Recently, I have been just doing some research. And when I look at the research and I see how much women are dying due to domestic violence or honor killing, 6 women every day get killed. I think 6 women in an hour or something like that get killed. Here in the
Chills.
UK, they did their first census in 2020, and they
Mhm.
found that 1 woman get killed every 3 days. Every 3 days, a woman get killed.
Wow.
It's yeah. So my legacy would be, I'd like to see a million, 100 million women lives get changed. Because when we think, the population,
Mhm.
just in Iceland, recently I found out 40% of the women in Iceland suffer abuse.
That is a
Sexual
high
abuse
statistic.
is very high,
Yeah, very
very,
high.
very high. I don't even want to know what about the US, because every day you hear it.
Right. You hear
Here in the
stories all the
UK,
time if you
you understand?
listen.
So when you hear that, and there is a pattern, because sometimes what happens, it goes back
Yes.
generations, it goes back and it keeps coming. And then you're thinking, somebody have got to break that cycle. It has to stop.
Right.
It has to stop. Women were meant to be a helpmate for men. We are not something to just toy with, kick around when you're ready. And yes, we are the birthers. We bring forth. So they plant the seed. They plant the seed, and we nurture the seed and bring the seed to growth, fruition, and voila, come this son or daughter. It's the same thing as a farmer goes out to plant his farm. He looks and see, what seed am I going to plant with, what seed, what can grow in my soil, and he put the seed that he will generate a good crop. So we don't just want to generate the crop, bring the sons and the daughters in, and you decide, well, no, we don't want the daughters, we want the son. Then who is going to reproduce for you? How are we going to reproduce? How are we going to bring these strong men and women? So men need to understand, and women need to understand their role as well. So it's not just one way, but it means that more women are abused. When you hear a 9-year-old being sold to be a 50-something-year-old man, wife, and he's telling you, oh no, I won't touch her till she become of age, lie, because he's going to molest her. He may not enter her, but he's going to use other things and molest her. I have been there. I know what it feels like. I understand what it feels like. He's going to groom her, groom her, groom her, groom her until he feels, okay, now it's time for penetration. So I want to see women and young girls life safe, and they don't have to go through that. And if I can change one woman's life, and that woman change another woman's life, and so forth and so forth, it snowballs, then it means I can change 100 million women lives.
So you have a very powerful mission to keep going forward on. Like, you stopped a lot of stuff for yourself. You broke, chains, you broke legacies, you broke stuff, and now you are unstoppable on your mission. And I love that, to support and help other women know that they can shift and change things. But it sounds like from everything you said, there's so many parts to it, but believing and having that desire and leaning into support of other people that can help them in so many ways. And I love that you are offering support in your, compassionate, powerful way based on, your education and your own experience. If someone wanted to reach out to you, Verna, to learn more about you or get support, how can they find you?
You can find me on www.lavirefresh.com. I'm having a gift. I'm giving a gift of a virtual retreat. It's a gift so that you could learn more about what I do. And so if you go on that website, you can enroll for free, and you can come on it and you can learn more about what I do. And if you want to work with me, then I'll be happy to work with you. Give you any guidance, so you can take the program, 3 powerful practices to take your power back. The thing about it, you were born powerful, but we were told, don't speak, don't say anything. Women must be seen and not heard.
Right.
We were shut down at a very, very young age. So now we need to speak up, because if we don't speak up, if we don't say anything, nobody hears our voice. So we need to shout loud. When you think about all these women coming together and make a shout, can you imagine? Can you imagine that sound?
It's powerful.
Oh my goodness, it's powerful.
It's
powerful. Really, really powerful. Yeah.
I love that. And you are so powerful, Verna, and unstoppable. And you have so much life, and you're so vibrant. I love that. Like, and and I love your tagline for your podcast, like, the unstoppable. You can't keep a good or a strong woman down, right? I mean, it's beautiful. So I wanted to ask you one final question before we close then. If someone found themselves at a choice point in their life where they wanted to make that shift, but their heart feels closed or they're really scared, what would you say to them?
I would say, take a moment. I found that out this week. I always thought I heard with my ears. We hear, but how do we listen? You think it here, someone will say it goes in one ear and come out the next. And earlier this week, I was reading. I like to read my Bible when I wake up in the morning and meditate. And I suddenly heard, listen, Verna, listen.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm listening. No, listen with your heart.
I love that. Listen with your heart. Yeah.
And then immediately it told, listen to with my heart. And then I thought of you. But actually, when we're listening, if we listen to our heart speaks. Because the word of God says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. With the heart, you believe.
Yeah.
We don't believe with our heads.
Right.
No, the thoughts come. Millions and millions of thoughts will come throughout the day. You're flustered, you're going up and down, and so many thoughts coming flying through. But when it comes to speaking, we open our mouth to speak. But where does that word come from? It comes from in here. So we want to be sure, what words are we keeping in our heart? Because man's heart is evil. But it's only evil if you choose to think evil.
So everything is
Yes, you
about
have the good
choice.
way and the bad way. Yeah, we have choices. It's about choices. That
Yeah.
so
So
much so, Kate, all about choices.
I love that, Verna, and I appreciate you. So, I mean, the takeaway from all that is to really listen with your heart and speak to your heart because we have choices and almost like make choices from that heart space, not, the head space or what everyone else tells us to do. Verna,
Mhm.
I really appreciate you being here today and sharing your story with us and inspiring other women who are in a difficult place to make that change for themselves or know that they can and that there's support out there if they really hear that call in their heart. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time and your presence and your energy. You're just so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very, very
Oh,
much.
you're so welcome. And to our listeners, if you like what you heard on this episode and got something out of the conversation with Verna, you can show her some love by visiting her website, her social media pages, tag her in a quote. Everything will be in the show notes for you to access. So until next time, may you tap into what lights up your heart and take deliberate, inspired action to create the impact that you desire.